I've been animating and using Maya for quite a long time, so I definitely recognize some of the faces out there. Some of you all may know me from my Maya days in the past. I've been using Unreal for the last 5 years, pretty much exclusively, and it's super fun seeing the animation tools progress and actually seeing Maya kind of come along for the ride. So the combination of being able to use a Maya pipeline in conjunction with Unreal for real-time workflows is it's super powerful and super fun. So I have a really awful cough, so if I start coughing, I apologize for that. I've had it for a couple weeks. It's not COVID. I got that at SIGGRAPH, so I know it's definitely not COVID. Plus, I tested a few times negative since then, but this cough just doesn't go away. It's like a post-COVID cough thing or something. I'm not sure, but if I go nuts with my cough, I apologize. So what we're going to be looking at today are a couple things. We're going to be sharing some data between Maya and UE5. We're going to be talking about Maya Live Link. It continues to evolve. So Autodesk has taken over the reins of the Maya component of that. So in 2023.1, you can now run version 2.1 of the plugin, which has got some pretty cool stuff that I'll be highlighting that today. We'll talk about ShotGrid very briefly. I did push my project up to 5.1 last minute because I wanted to show a couple of USD things. And in the process, I kind of broke some of the ShotGrid integration. But I will walk you through the process and kind of explain how it works and what's going on with that. We'll be talking about control rig, and the control rig system inside of Unreal it's ridiculous. It's super, super cool. So we'll briefly touch on that just to kind of talk about secondary animation, and we'll spend a bit of time talking about look development. It's all really pretty basic stuff. Everything in this presentation, I would say, is beginner to intermediate. It's not a deep dive in any way. It's kind of right up there at the surface level to give you guys an understanding of what it's like to work with Maya and UE5, specifically kind of coming from the background of a Maya user. So hopefully that makes sense and you guys enjoy it. And we'll go ahead and we'll hop on into it. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is ShotGrid. So obviously the Autodesk suite of tools work really well with Unreal. Max works great with it too. I'm more of a Maya guy. The Max guys I love, but Maya was my baby. I used it since before V1. I started at Alias in '95, so I was there from the beginning of Maya, and it's really come a long way. And ShotGrid is a great tool for doing kind of film-based production pipeline stuff as well as game-based workflows now. So we'll be just talking about that a bit. This project was managed using ShotGrid. They've actually rebranded it, so this is the website portion of it where you get a good overview of the tasks and the things like that might be assigned to an artist. So I've got some tasks that have been assigned to me inside of Maya. So if we jump into Maya to start, let's just find Maya over here. You can see that at my home level here, I have a variety of different tasks that have been assigned by the producer. So there's like an assembly task, a layout task, and some animation stuff. And this ShotGrid panel is consistent throughout the application. So if you look at it inside of Maya, you're going to notice when we bring up Unreal, it's going to basically be the exact same kind of workflow and the same ideology that carries throughout. So it's a very consistent workflow. And this allows you to basically come in, see what your projects are, what you're supposed to work on the day, grab some data from it perhaps, publish some data back into it. Things like that are all handled through ShotGrid and through this panel as well as through the drop-down menu that you can see up here. Now this is the, actually I'll play back the animation of what we're going to be working on. So this is just a simple little animation that I've been playing around with. It's basically rock-crushing robot who gets harassed by a mechanical bee. And the bee has secondary animation on it. So everything inside of here is UE5. I pushed up to 5.1, like I said, so it's using Lumen for the lighting, all dynamically lit. The rocks and all the quarries and things like that are nanite meshes coming from Quixel, so it's using Quixel, all Quixel assets for that. We can talk about that briefly too, kind of the scattering mechanism that I'm using to do that's kind of fun. And then the bee obviously was done with secondary animation. So we're going to be talking about getting files out of Maya. The first thing we want to do is just go over that really quickly. And there's a few ways of doing that, right? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using FBX for the animated characters, the skeletal meshes. And I want to show you a trick on how, when you're using FBX, to have it create material instances so that you don't end up with a file full of masters. Like, your idea is to use as many instances as possible and as few as masters as possible. And I'll walk you through that process. And we'll briefly talk about USD and some of the improvements that have been made with 5.1. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of time to dive into that also. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to export out this FBX file. So this is just another version of the character that I have set up that doesn't have any skeletal mesh on it. And the reason I'm not going to bring the skeletal mesh in when I import it is just from a speed perspective. It's much faster not to have it generate that skin cluster information. So the idea is when you create a character, what I always do inside of Unreal or inside of Maya is I'll go through, and for every material that I have, I'm going to go ahead and just tell it to, you'll see that they're all annotated with MI. I want to try to have, whenever I open this file up inside of Unreal, I want material instances. So I'm just going to give it the naming kind of shortcut of material instance MI inside on the Maya side. So I've got that set up. I've got the FBX file saved out. And those FBX files all have textures assigned to a couple channels. So the specularity's got what would be roughness assigned to it, and then the diffuse has got basically like the kind of the albedo color assigned to it. And that's in an FBX file. So inside of Maya, if you wanted to, you could basically say, all right, well, I want to get this data published into ShotGrid so that I can begin opening it up in another application. And that workflow is pretty straightforward. You basically just pen what task you want to work on, which is going to be this assemble task. You go up to the ShotGrid menu, you drop down to the you hit the Publish button, and when the Publish button comes up, you can see that there's a few things. Again, this is an evolving tool, so we've actually handled the ShotGrid integration on our side for Unreal, whereas Autodesk obviously has taken over the Maya Live Link. So you can see that you can now save out FBX files directly through ShotGrid, which is great. It's very modular, right? If you wanted to add your own stuff, like I want to save USD out, you could, with a pipeline engineer, kind of set that up. This project wasn't set up that way, but just keep in mind that it is very flexible in its approach. So one thing that's also new is this publish and submit for review. So this is basically just going to do like a turntable when you do the actual publish now, which is kind of nice. And that's stuff that's kind of hardwired in. So the idea is you basically go through, you take a snapshot, and then you'd say, give it some notes. Go ahead and you then hit the publish button. It's going to save it out local on disk and then make an entry into the ShotGrid database so that everybody who's watching the project knows, hey, there's been an update, a change, and here are the notes associated with it. So all that's been done for that robot already. So let's go ahead and just jump into Unreal, and we'll bring that guy in, and we'll look at how those materials come across, and we'll do a few things with him. So let's see here. So the first thing I want to do is when you launch the applications, you launch it from the ShotGrid desktop, and that's what kind of adds in that pipeline and that integration to it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to launch off Unreal 5.1. It's worth mentioning that I did have to compile a few of the plugins that we're using to get it to run into 5.1, PR1, mainly Maya Live Link. So it's on Git. If you want to use Unreal Live Link plugins, you're going to have to compile them yourself. So just keep that in mind if you're running 2023 of Maya. So let's go ahead and open up this project. And because I launched it through that ShotGrid launcher, you're going to notice when it opens up, it's going to have a couple things that are a little different. There's going to be like a little ShotGrid button inside of there and things like that. And that's all managed by the fact that we launched it from the actual launcher here. And that took just a second to kind of open up and get itself happy, which is cool. So you can see here's a ShotGrid dropdown, just like it was inside of Maya. If we open the ShotGrid panel, it'll take a second to kind of cache in there and load. But again, it's consistent with what you saw in Maya. The workflow is exactly the same throughout this process. So if we wanted to, we could go in here and we could say, ShotGrid load, and I could browse out to my tasks and go into my, I think it's in the sci-fi truck, assemble, and I could grab that FBX file directly through ShotGrid. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open it up in the content browser into the assets, and I'm going to show you guys just a couple little things that are kind of fun. So what I've done is I've made a basic, here, we'll just blow that away for now. I've made a base material. So M stands for master. It's just a master basic material. And I've got a couple of textures inside of here for base color. Their parameters have been made available, so they're basically live. They can be edited in material instances because we've done that. And we have one piped into roughness. So we've got this master material that we want to use when we import in that FBX file. So if we go in here and we say import FBX, and we go grab the robo file. Hopefully I have it on disk here. I assume I do. Let's see here. Yeah, I got the guy. Cool. So we'll say open on this guy. FBX file. So a couple things. Skeleton meshes are turned off because, like I said, I didn't want to have to wait for that to come in. You can build nanite meshes directly here. And if you scroll down, this is the interesting thing is for the material, if you say, it's not on by default, you say create new material instances, and then you can basically go through and say anywhere that you see color, pipe it into the base texture, into the color attribute that I defined in that basic robo master that we made, and then any specular information that was assigned inside of Maya, we're going to basically take that specular and shove it into roughness, right? Pretty straightforward. So by doing that, now if we do an import all, it'll take a second to come in, but when it comes in, you're going to see that there'll be a couple masters that get made, because if there's not a one-to-one match with what you're asking to pipe into that master material that you currently made, it's going to create a deviant master from that. So you'll see like the things like the glow and stuff like that will have their own masters, but the majority of these guys actually are material instances, right? So if I highlight over top of these guys, you'll see material instance, material instance. So if I double click on these, you can see that those overrides have been automatically checked on, and then the color map associated with it that was in Maya has been added. So it's just a simple little thing, but it really does help. And then the other thing that's really nice about this is if you make a master material for your main character that's got a lot of, like almost like UDIMs or something like that, and you wanted to make a change, like a color correction or something like that, by making and adding logic into the master, it's going to daisy chain out into all the instances based off of that master, which is super, super cool. So just to show that, if we double click inside of this guy, let's drop this robot in here in our scene first, just so we can see this little dude. So there he is. Let's frame in on that guy. All right, so he comes in, and right off the bat, he's like really shiny, right? So I'm using Lumen reflections, Lumen GI. As I mentioned, nanite meshes on the ground, and virtual shadow maps to capture all the detail of this high, very high quality rocks and things like that. So I don't want this guy to be this shiny, and I definitely don't want him to be that color exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into that Robo Master, right? And I'm just going to make a modification to this material. So if I hold down the L key down and click with the left mouse button, I get a lerp. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just basically remap those roughness values. They're actually inverted from what I want, right? So I'm going to use this to help build a system that lets me control that really quickly. So we'll just grab the red out of this into the alpha. We'll promote this to a parameter, and we'll just leave it B for now because I do want to just keep plowing forward here. Obviously, it'd be good to name these something, a little bit more meaningful than A and B, but for now, for a demo, A and B is going to be what we're going to use. So we'll just put this to a value of 1. We can hit apply. Now, as soon as we do that, if we look back here, you can see, he's gotten a little bit darker. We've inverted that map a little bit, and he starts to look a little bit better. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to drop this value down to something like 0.5. And as I do that, you can see that it goes through and it makes all of the materials get a little bit rougher that are associated off of this. Oops, I haven't lerped it in there yet. Let's do that. We've got to apply that into the graph there. You can see he's now obviously not super, super shiny, right? And that replicates across all those different materials that were material instances based off of this. So that's the idea. And of course, if we go back and we look at one of these material instances, at any time now, we now have the ability to go back and make unique tweaks to those instances, right? Pretty straightforward. But I like to make the main changes in the master to get it kind of dialed in, sort of where I want it. And once I get the roughness down a little bit, he starts to look a little dark in that scene. So I'm going to go back into this master, and I'm just going to lift it up with an S-curve. So this will just let me kind of lift the mids a little bit. So we'll just pipe that into there. You can do something like that. And if I just put this to something like a power, 0.7 or something, promote that to a parameter and put it to like 0.7. That'll just kind of brighten them up a little bit. All right, cool. Now he's a little brighter. So I hope you guys saw him in the background there. He kind of just popped on. So that's how you can basically get FBX files in, right? All very good, all very straightforward. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to do a couple of other things. Let's go ahead and start doing some Maya Live Link stuff with this guy, and then we'll talk about USD in the truck after that. So we can blow this little dude away. We don't need him anymore. We've got another version of that character that has been brought in, and let's go ahead and I'm going to just get rid of this stuff here. Get rid of you. And we'll get rid of you. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the assets. We're going to go to our other robo here. This is the one that's got the skeleton mesh, right? So here's a robo skeleton mesh, so SM_skeleton mesh. So that's my rigged version of the character. Same guy, just this time with the skeleton. We're going to drop him into the level. And We'll go back and hit this little button to zero him out, kind of to where the origin would be inside of Maya. So what we want to do is we want to get this character driven by animation that lives inside of Maya currently, right? So instead of saving out animation data over FBX, we're going to be creating a link between Maya so that we can view it in real time, make changes to that animation, and if we wanted to just keep, like adding clip after clip after clip, it's really fast and really easy to do because we have that, that live connection between the two. So let's jump back into Maya. Now, in Maya, as I mentioned before, when you install the 2.1, and if you go to Autodesk's website and get the 2.1 installer and just double-click on it, it's going to install for version 5 of Maya. So if you want to build to 5.1, you can get the source code off of Git and the Maya SDK and do that. So I've done that. I just need to load that plugin in. So if we say Windows, Plugin Manager, and we search for Live, you'll see that the Live Link 5.0, which ships with Maya, or what comes with the installer, I should say, when you double-click on it, not going to work for this demo because we're going to 5. So we'll unload that guy. We'll just browse out and go to my root where I've got that version for 2023 sitting here. So we'll load that up just like that. So now if we go to our Live Link window, we can bring this up and we'll just pop it over there. All right, so we've got one section loaded up. We're going to go into Windows, Virtual Production, and we're going to pull up the Live Link window. And again, this is a plugin that you would have to load. So you'd have to go to plugins, and then if you search for Maya, you can see that it's already there. It's already loaded in my project. But that's basically what you're going to do. So if we click on the source button and we go over to that Maya instance, you can see we've now connected to Maya. So if we jump back to Maya here, you can see we have this little connection sign up there in the right-hand corner. So we're now ready to take data and get it going into Unreal. Now, the 2.1 version of the plugin is really cool because Maya can actually create things in your content browser, in your actual level, in your project. So we're going to actually be creating animation assets directly from Maya that will end up in our content browser inside of Unreal for this character. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our robo worker offset, which is this guy right here. This is basically what I've got is I've got some motion capture data on this character, right? So he's kind of moving around. So we've got the original motion capture, and then I've got the retargeted version of that motion capture on this level right here. And I'm just using HIK to do that. So just set it up really simply inside of Maya with HIK. It's still live. I actually haven't baked the information onto this rig, right? It's not rotational values that are on that rig. It's literally a live link right now through HIK. And it's still going to allow us to daisy chain through that HIK into Live Link into Unreal, which is actually really pretty awesome, pretty cool. So if we do that, all we have to do is say add selected. So here we can see we've got this robo offset. If you were doing just straight transforms, not hierarchies of animation data, you could basically go ahead and switch to transform. For this one, obviously, it is a hierarchy of animation. So we're going to leave it on animation. And if we click on our link button, you can see here is all the other skeleton meshes inside of Unreal. So this window is basically showing me what's in Unreal. So I've got my unused skeletons up there, and then I've got my target animation sequences down here in the bottom. And you can see my awesome naming, DDF. Yeah, it's I'm really bad at naming. I'm like the worst. I try, but I always get lazy and start just hitting ridiculous stuff in there. Let's go ahead and grab this robo-skeleton. That's the guy we're working with, right? And what animation clip do we want to have? And let's just call it fight. And if I hit the plus button, just like that, we've now added at the root level a clip called fight, an animation sequence called fight. So if we jump back into Unreal and we go back to content here, you can see we're going to have that animation sequence in there. All right, so let's go ahead and get a new sequence. So we're going to say add a, on this level sequence here, I can actually just, let's do a new one. Actually, we can just use this one. That's fine. Here, I'll just blow all this stuff away. Get rid of you. And we'll leave that animated camera. No, we'll get rid of that too. All right, so we've got this animation sequence. We've got our robo that we've added into our scene. So we'll just drag and drop that guy down here. We'll click on animation, and we'll grab that clip. And now if we start to play this back, you can see that we've got, basically that animation clip tied into what Maya would be doing, which is really pretty awesome and pretty powerful. So we'll link that guy together. It goes through, it does its processing, and I think if I dock it, like, let's see if I can get this guy to dock here. Ooh, that's tough. It went to this other monitor. Where did it go? Here it is. All right. Oh, come on. It's not going to work. Let's try Windows, dock like that. OK, cool, that worked. And then we can get Unreal back up here. So basically the windows are now linked together. So we've got these two guys essentially driving each other through that live link process, which is really, really pretty awesome. Now, the next thing that we want to do is, let's just go ahead and get this guy back to full screen here. The next one that we want to do is we want to work with that bee motion, right? So we've got this bee, and he's kind of doing this little fly thing, but there's no secondary animation on him. So what we're going to do is we're going to build up a simple little control rig inside of Unreal that will let us grab that root motion. So it's just the root of the character that's kind of animated inside of Maya. So we're going to basically grab that root motion that's animated, and we're going to use that to basically drive all of the animation that's going to be dynamically set up for the tail and the little feet and things like that. So we'll jump back into Unreal, and let's go ahead and we can leave that link live. That's fine. We can go ahead and find that bee on disk. And I think I have him setting in assets already. So he came in through FBX, just like the robot, same exact workflow basically. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to start to build up a control rig. Now I've already done one, but I'm going to walk you through the process and show you a few things that are kind of fun with this guy. So if you right-click on top of a skeletal mesh and you say create control rig, it's going to come up and basically make this control rig number 2. So if we double-click on that and we bring it in, this is the control rig editor, and it's really, really powerful. You can do all kinds of incredibly sophisticated rigs inside of here, FK-IK switching. Unlike Maya, where it's a dependency graph where there's a very specific order in the execution, you can have multiple branches in the execution order of the control rig, so you can blend and use that to do some very, very, very cool things. The full body IK solvers are awesome. There's a lot of different types of algorithms you can use to create the look and feel of your character. So I've got this bee's skeleton already displayed, which is done by going up here to character, bones. By default, it wouldn't be all hierarchy. It would be like bones selected or something like that. So you wouldn't really see them. So I almost always just turn on show me the full hierarchy. So what we want to do is we want to create a simple, we'll start off with the tail, and we'll build up from there. So we're going to take this tail and we're going to put an IK chain down it that's going to have an end solver. And that end solver, we're going to create just a little bit of lag so that when we move the root of the character, or the root of the character is being driven by the animation clip that started in Maya, that IK chain is just going to kind of lag behind it. It's very, very common, pretty cool workflow. So this is all done with a forward solve. Now it's worth mentioning that the control rig can also do inversion solves or backward solves, which means if you've got data that comes across it's on forward kinematics, like rotational values on joints or translations, and you want to get that information onto a control rig because you want a higher level control, you want IK handles and things like that, you can do a reverse solve inside of this solution also, which we've demoed many times in the past. So just keep that in mind that it does forward and reverse solving, which is really, really cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an IK chain for the tail. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to get an end marker or a control rig in the position of that last tailbone. So if I highlight that, I can right-click on top of this and I can say, give me a control for selected. And this is a Python script. We actually ship with a lot of Python scripts, sample Python scripts and things like that. So I now have a control. Ooh, it looks like I did something for that guy. I didn't make it in the same spot. Hold on, let's do that again here. The delete key is not the delete key on this keyboard. That's really annoying. Delete. I did a space, I think. All right, so let's go back, grab this guy, and then say create a new control for selected. And let's grab that guy. Oh, it didn't put it at the right spot. That's interesting. No, not a problem. We can work around that. So let's just go ahead and get that guy kind of positioned over here toward the end of the tail. And all I have to do is right-click on top of this guy and say, put it to the closest bone. And we'll switch the display of that to a, I don't know, something like a box thick. Oh, wow, that's weird. I don't think it's switching the display. Very strange. All right, we'll hit compile and see if that does a better job. Oh, it changed the display and put it back to where it was. That's funny. All right. Do that again. One more time. Set from current closest bone. Okay, cool. Great. So it's auto-compiling in the background and not doing what it's supposed to. That's really, really weird. What the heck is going on? I might restart this and just give it another shot. Let's boot out of this guy and try it again. All right. Is that? There we are. So I jumped up to 5.1, which probably wasn't the best choice this week. PR1 did come out. PR2, I think, came out yesterday. I was scared to try to jump up even further, but maybe I should have went up to PR2. Let's just give this a quick run through and see what happens here on this guy. All right, there's our little dude. He looks good. Very happy with that. Let's go and create a control rig from him. And I'm just going to save that just because. And cool. Let's jump over here, grab tail 6, and tell it to make a control for selected. All right, if it doesn't work this time, which I don't think it is because it doesn't look like that Python script is working for some reason, I'm just going to walk you through the, yeah, it didn't do it. It's so strange. All right, Ghost in the Shell. We'll try it one more time, but I think it's just putting it to the origin every time, which is super, super strange. But I can walk you through what we have going on with the other guy and kind of explain it. It'll make perfect sense that way too, so it's okay. All right, so let's just try this one last time, and if not, then we'll. Okay. Yeah, the fact that it's not snapping when I run the Python script, it should just automatically be aligned.
You see over in the right panel, down the right hand side.
Where?
Transform. Up.
Oh, weird. Wonder why that's like that.
I think that might.
Set offset from transform current closest bone. Let's see if we hit compile. No, it's just going to weird spots.
I got it to a new place.
It went to a foot. So tail 6 is actually really the same thing as a foot, which is highly amusing. Look, what we'll do is I'll walk you through the rig, and we'll talk about that. So let's just compress these guys down a little bit. So what I've got going on here, which is pretty straightforward, is off the forward solve, we have a CC IK. So that takes an array of bones. And I've actually got all the tail bones inside of there. And then I've got an extra 7th bone. And there's a reason I did that. And I'll show you that as we start to interactively play around with this guy. So it takes an array of bones. And the way you make the array of bones is you just grab the list and drag it out let go of it and say, create an array. Pretty straightforward. So once you have this array, you can start to, obviously use it to create IK chains and things like that, which is exactly what we did. So then what we're doing is we're going through and we're getting the transform of tail 6, which in this example is where it's supposed to be, which is great. And once you get that information, we're going to use that to drive the translation, but I'm introducing a spring effect in the path, right? So there's a few different ways of doing it. There's a few different types of algorithms you can use, but this is just a vector spring that gets introduced in there, so it has a little bit of a lag and delay and a dampening value and things like that associated with it. So that gets shoved into the transform, and then what I'm doing is I'm coming off and I'm doing basically the same thing for the legs, and because the legs are there's several of them. There's 6 of them. I didn't want to have to build up all of these nodes every single time. So you can make functions, just like you can make material functions in Unreal, you can make functions in Control Rig, which is cool. So what I've done is I've made a function of what the leg setup would be, which is really quite similar to what we have going on right here. It's almost the exact same thing. So if we look inside of this, you can see that we have the array of bones. That's going to be like the list of legs. So I grab the array of bones, and because I need to get the controller, I didn't want to, you don't know, because I'm making a function, I'm going to be shoving a random array in there. I don't know what the name of that chain might be, but I do know that my legs all have the same amount of bones in it. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the third index of that array, right? So it's basically the end of the chain. I'm taking that name, and I'm just adding to it with the concat underscore control. So it automatically knows, all right, leg 6, I get, leg 6 joint 4 underscore control. Or, my middle leg, it'll be leg 6 underscore control also. So it basically goes through and creates for me the name of the transform, and you just pipe that into the name, right? Instead of manually setting that, I'm going to use this little kind of dynamically generated naming system that's going to give me the name of that control. And then it's the exact same thing. We're just grabbing and shoving the transformation information with a little bit of delay, a little bit of lag into that so that we get that kind of jiggle effect happening. And then that gets shoved into the IK chain, very straightforward. And I'm doing a couple things where I'm saying start from the tail on that IK chain, and I've kind of got the precision and weightings the same, and I've got the dampening dropped down a tiny bit, like to a value of 0.5. So really basic little rig. Now, because we're driving this with LiveLink, right? LiveLink is driving this bone here. So when it comes in, that bone's what's getting the animation track associated with it, right? When it comes in from Maya. So what I've done is I've just parented below the hierarchy of that root node all of those control handles, right? So they basically track its position and get everything based off of that LiveLink data that's kind of moving it around, and it introduces in the delay from the spring. Very straightforward. So to prototype it and kind of play around with it inside of Unreal, what I do is I just put a little node. So if we jump back up here to this, I've got basically the root that I can drive the root of the B with this. So it gets a controller, and that controller drives the root position of the bone. And I just hook this up just so that I can kind of come in here and get a sense of how it feels when I start to play around with this guy, when I start to move it and do stuff with it. Like how does it feel? And I get this nice little kind of jiggly effect happening on that guy. And if we do like rotations, you can kind of see the overall movement that we get with that dampening. Now, as I said before, I did do a couple things where I switched the on the legs. I'm telling it to start from tail. So look at the way the movement happens here on the tail right now of the bee. And then if we throw this flag, you're going to see that it's going to behave in a very different way. So it's just kind of changing the order in which that solver is kind of calculating. As it starts from the head of the chain or the tail of the chain is basically what's happening with that. So for the feet, I had it set to start from tail, and for the tail, I didn't actually, which is kind of silly and kind of fun. And then I'm also doing a couple things where you can see those little dots. So those little dots are just evaluation. So whenever you want to see something, you can always right-click on top of it, and you can say, toggle visual debug on and off. So I just add those, and you can set the color for the visual debugs in the details panel. So those let me see kind of where it's at and where it's trying to get to. That's all those little dots are doing for us there, which is kind of cool and pretty fun. So that's the B. I don't know why it wasn't working before. That's really strange. It's worked all day long, all over the place, but that is the way demos go sometimes. All right, so with that done, basically what you do, and because we kind of stopped halfway between with that last thing, I'm not sure if I've still got it hooked up. Let's see if I still have a sequence in here that's got the character in it. Hopefully I do. Yeah, cool. So what you do is you basically take that control rig, you add it into your sequence, and then because Unreal and Maya LiveLink, all it's really doing is it's baking out these animation sequences. That's all LiveLink does, is it basically sends into your scene an animation sequence. So what we do is we put the control rig in there, we send that animation sequence in, and that animation sequence drives the root of the B, and then all the other stuff jiggles and goes along for the ride. So the other thing that's worth mentioning, on the Maya side, what else comes across? So like you can see I added in the worker. The camera you can also add in. So if we do that, you can see there comes the camera. Same idea where you're going to go and say, oh, I need to turn LiveLink back on here, which might mess some stuff up, but let's just do that so you can see the list. So when I bring this over, now that we've turned LiveLink back on, we go back to Maya. When we click the link button, it's going to go through, and you can see that it gives you the ability to find the camera that it's going to basically attach to. So you're always given it queries what's going on in Unreal and gives you a list of options. So if I had multiple cameras in there, I could say, no, I want this camera tied to this other camera. They've added more control over what comes across in the camera data. So field of view, lights come across, blend shapes come across, transforms and skeletal information are the kind of the big things that kind of come across here. All right, so with that done, if we close this guy back down and we move through this. Let's see here if this B is going to actually go along for the ride. I'm not sure if he is, since we kind of broke it, but let's give it a shot. Here, I'm going to turn LiveLink. Let's get this guy. Oh no, we lost him. Oh, that's so sad. Yeah, he's not happy. He's not a happy guy because we kind of messed him up. Yeah, let's see if we can rebuild it. There he is. Okay, cool. All right, so let's just make sure our clips are kind of aligned here. And we can go back to our select mode, try to get rid of that just so it's a little easier to see what's going on. And if we look at this guy, oh, the secondary stuff's not working because we didn't do it right. Well, let's talk about some look development really quickly. So I've got a couple things going on in this scene. I'm going to turn it off and we'll just build it up. We have about 10 minutes left, 15 minutes. Would we go to this 30 after, or we stop at in 11 minutes? Actually, I have a clock right here. We go to 50. So I had all the lighting sitting on this scene. What we want to do is we want to just build this up really, really quickly. So the way that the lighting was done in this particular scene was actually using the atmosphere model. The atmosphere model is really powerful inside of Unreal. It's very, very fun to work with. There's a couple ways of doing it. You could build it up yourself, or you could use the Sun Sky, which is a plugin that gives you a calculator that lets you calculate the time of day. So I've got that plugin turned on. So I'm going to just go ahead and really quickly create that. So if we say lights and bring up Sun Sky, it's going to come in and it's going to be really, really bright. Like it's crazy high value on that directional light. So the Sun Sky is made up of, if we look at the details on this guy, you've got a skylight, you've got a directional light with, again, a very high luminance value, like the lux value is really high, and then you've got the sky atmosphere. And the sky atmosphere really is what is controlling the majority of the look and feel of this, right? So the directional light is going to become the sun that's inside of this, and the skylight is set to have real-time capture turned on. So that's kind of how it comes in out of the box, very straightforward. So the thing that's nice about this is as you start to move through the time of day, you're going to get all of the kind of indirect light happening and being driven from that solar time, essentially, and that directional angle of that sunlight. So if we go back up to the sun sky and just grab the solar time, here's a cool tip. If you right-click on top of this and say Add to Favorites, because this is something you're going to use a lot, and you click this little star on, now at the very top of your details panel, you're going to have a list of anything that you flagged as your favorite thing, which is really awesome. So as I start to swipe through this here, you can see as that sun starts to drop down, you get these really interesting looks and feels to it. And it's by default got auto exposure turned on. Now we just turned off all the lighting information that was in our other level. So the post-process volume that used to be assigned to this has been removed. So the next thing we want to do is we want to get a post-process volume in there because that's going to give us a lot of control to generate the look and feel of this, as well as set the overall exposure and work with it at a higher level. So we'll say create, and we'll grab a visual effects for the post-process volume. In the post-process volume, they actually live in a volume, right? Like the settings that you put in the post-process exist within the volume that you've scaled that to. So what we want to do in this example is we want it to live everywhere in the world. We're just going to go ahead and switch it over to infinite, which is kind of unbound down here. Here, I'll just search for it. So we'll turn that on. And I'm going to switch the bloom model over to be a convolution bloom just because I like the way that looks a little bit better. And I'm going to also grab that truck and drop that truck in here. So the truck is pretty interesting. So I've got that truck actually saved out as a USD file. So if we open this guy up just so you can see what's going on with that, we'll do it like this. So if we grab this guy, this was the original truck setup. It's pretty straightforward, little skeletal mesh, and it's got this basic little rig that lets you, kind of turn the wheels and do some stuff with it. So we want to bring this into Unreal as a USD file, right? So the idea is in Maya, you're going to author assets, and then you're going to export them out as USD data. Once they're exported out as USD data, they live on the USD stage. If you haven't worked with USD in the past, what that USD stage allows you to do is basically reference in objects. They don't really live inside of the host application. They live on the stage, and you kind of reference them in or soft link into them. So it allows you to work in a very non-destructive way. As changes kind of update with the data sets, they automatically appear in your file with the updated changes. There's a layering system so that you can do, you can segment it out where you might have shader development on one layer, animation on another layer. You can have variants. So it's a very robust tool for doing kind of large, long format pipeline work. So what we want to do is we want to get this truck as a USD file. And that's really easily done just by saying File, Export Selection or Export All, and then bringing up USD as your option. So there's two of them in here. There's honored USD and just straight USD export. I just used straight USD export. One thing worth mentioning when you export this out, you're probably going to want to not smooth it. You're most likely going to want to just tell it to be polygon none. And if you want that skeletal information to come across, you're going to have to turn that on. It's also worth mentioning there is support now for Material X in 5.1. It's experimental support, but it is there. So if you wanted to start doing Material X data transfers for the shading language and things like that, you could. For this example, I actually went ahead and set up USD preview surfaces, and those live inside of Maya, right? Like if you go to your Hypershade window, this truck is actually graphed out with all of these USD, oops, sorry about that. They're graphed out and set up using the USD material. Let's get rid of this ShotGrid panel. It's just kind of annoying. So if you look at that, you can see that it's got the basics, it's like a PBR, essentially. And that information is going to come across into Unreal exactly the way you would expect or exactly the way you would want it to. So that's what's going on there. I've got those guys set up. So you would basically go through, again, bring up that USD export and just basically say save it out by turning on the skeletal mesh information as well as the USD preview surfaces. So with that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this guy, and I'm going to just re-import it back in. So if we say create USD, create a USD scene description stage from that file. If we bring that in, it'll take a second, but not too long. And you can see it kind of just comes up and pops right in. Actually, let's go ahead and let's redo that. I'm going to save this one out because it looks like I've already updated that. And I want to get a new version of that guy. So we're going to say export all. And to this guy, we're going to do a USD export. And we'll just call this truck. All right. Actually, I'm going to do that one more time because I don't know if I actually set the options right. I hit enter so fast I didn't even look at what I did. Let's do an export all and make sure that we had that set to go out and do. Yeah, we didn't get that. That was a mistake. None. All right, cool. Boom, boom, boom. No animation data. That's great. Export all. Yeah, much smaller file size, so it's good to get all that information in there. So it's going to go out. It's going to make a USD file. And with that done, if we hide this guy, we'll bring it back in as a USD file on the stage. And we're going to do the same thing inside of Unreal. So we'll say new stage from file. We'll grab this little guy right here. We'll create it. While that's processing in the background, I'm going to go over here and do the same thing. So we're going to say Windows, Virtual Production, USD stage. We're going to create a open that guy up. We'll grab the same file. It's going to go through. It's going to process and think about this for a second. The Maya side might even be done. So let's just toggle back to the Maya one is done. So there's our Maya file brought back in. Now you'll notice if we highlight these two guys and just hit the H key, just flip between them, they look exactly the same. Like they are literally the same data. One of them just happens to live externally on the USD stage. One of them was the source data that created the USD file. And I hope that makes sense to you guys. It's a little different, but the end result is a very elegant system for doing kind of file referencing and things like that. And this is still churning away on the Maya side. Cool. So we got that bigger dump truck. Inside of Unreal now. And what we want to do is we want to position this truck in Unreal. And there's something that was new added in 5.1. So 5.1 USD has the ability to have live link associated with it, as well as you can assign a control rig or create a control rig directly on top of the USD data, which is super, super cool. So to do that, let's go ahead and bring up that USD window one more time. So we'll go back to Virtual Production USD stage. So on this dump truck, if we right-click on top of it, you can see that we can set it up with live link. Very straightforward, like what we were doing before. Or we can have it create a control rig. So we'll say set up control rig. It goes through. And with that control rig setup, what we're going to do is we're going to actually come back into the USD stage, and we'll just bring this guy up, and we'll double-click on this just so you can see it sitting here. So here's the dump truck sequence that we just made on that USD stage because we brought it in, and we made the control rig by right-clicking on top of it. So with that control rig, all we have to do is say use FKIK control rig. So I could take a control rig like one that's already in my scene and associate it with that file, and then whatever animation I do on that control rig that I previously offered in Unreal would save its information into the USD stage, right? So the animation data wouldn't live it would live in the USD stage, therefore it would go to any application you wanted it to. In this example, we're not going to hook up a control rig to it that was already pre-generated. We're going to just have it create a simple FK control rig. So it's going to go through on each bone and make an FK control rig. So very straightforward. And if you look in my sequencer, I brought it up so that you could see it happen as I did it. Here's the FK control rig for that truck that was just generated, right? So it comes through. It always makes like 3 keyframes on it. So what we're going to do is we'll just we'll compress this back down, and I'm gonna just blow these two guys away here. I'll show you a little tip. So you get rid of those guys. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just reposition this truck somewhere else, and then we'll update it. So we'll grab that guy, which is the root of this. We'll kind of push it back over here, and we'll spin it around. And you can turn the controls on if you say display hierarchy. If we zoom in here now, you'll see that there's actually like little tiny thin bones in there. You can barely see them, but they're there. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and just spin this guy around. And if we hit the S key, we can keyframe all of these guys right here with that new position. And you might grab like one of these wheels or something, and like like you can start to offset some of the other stuff inside of it. All right. So the thing that you need to do, though, is as soon as I move off of this, you'll notice that it just snaps back. It needs to have 2 keyframes on it to actually know to interpolate that curve and extend that curve out. So that's kind of why it has 2 or 3 on it when you first make it. So if you just middle mouse button drag across and then hit the S key or go ahead and key everything on top of that, it's going to set a second key, and now it'll basically sit in that new position for as long, or it'll be animated if we set some keys that have some interpolation into them. But it's now basically set up where it now lives in this new place. We've done the offset using a control rig, very different than if we would have just repositioned the truck. And of course, after you've done that, you can always go back into the USD, and it's going to tell you with a little star that it's dirty, right? Like basically, we've made some changes in this file. So if we want that change to be captured in that USD file, we'd have to save it. So if we do a file save on that guy, it's going to go through, and now that's actually saved into the USD file. So in theory, if I got rid of this guy, just get rid of that USD stage, or I could have just updated it, I guess, also. We'll reload it in. We'll just create a new version of it. So we'll create a USD scene description. If it doesn't crash. We're actually out of time, too, so it's a good time for questions. We've got 5 minutes, I think, for questions, if anyone has any. Sure. No, the USD stuff is new and that we're showing here. The video will be uploaded in, I don't know, when do these go out? Probably in a couple weeks they'll be up. But a lot of the stuff that we showed today would work in 2.7 also, a fair bit of it. I'm in 5.1, yeah. And actually, we crashed Maya. It's fully locked. Awesome. Way to end a demo is crashing Maya, right? I can't. Come on back, Maya. You can do it. Well, Unreal didn't crash, but the control rig didn't know what a tail and a foot was, so that's kind of funny, right? Play around with Maya and Unreal. They're both great. Unreal's better, but